Hey everyone, welcome back. We're at episode 7. We have with us today, who is a licensed coach and counselor. Thank you so much for being here. And you know, I was looking over your Instagram, so much to see there, but we would love just a quick background and give us a bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my name is Yaosmel. My friends call me Yao. I've been a mental health counselor in the field of psychology for over 14 years. I definitely focus more on the behavioral health services. I did start my journey in psychiatric hospitals, working with children and families. From there on, I went and worked a little bit in corrections, and then I transitioned to remote. And yeah, I believe that definitely my strong determination and passion in life pushes me in situations outside my comfort zone. And I'm here to hopefully provide value, and I'm excited to be here.
It's awesome. I wanted to ask you a bit about like your journey to getting to where you are, and was there like anything specific that made you passionate in wanting to become a mental health professional and working in this field of service that you do, not just like for your whole journey so far. It seems like the key like idea behind it all is just like you providing service to other people and serving the world. So is there anything specific that made you realize like this is what you want to do?
Yeah, when I was in school, I was actually studying first, like to be, I was studying in IT. And yeah, it was definitely challenging going into the technology field. But I've always had a passion for learning about others and connecting with others. And I took my first course on psychology 2 years in. And was like a massive class. So like possibly like 200 plus students. But I just became in love with it. I became in love with the journey, just making sure that the value that I receive from just, being there and understanding that one could make a difference when it comes to mental wellness and the importance it is in the world. So that's a little bit about my journey. I was just, in class. I took a class in psychology, and it was wonderful, and I really enjoyed it, and I've always had a passion to connect with others.
That's awesome. Yeah, you say your tagline is empowering people to ignite their life passion. How do
Yeah.
you help people uncover what truly drives them?
Yeah. So great question. So normally, just with connections, as I said before, just making sure that I'm expanding. Couple years ago, I did go ahead and did go to a retreat, and that was really the turning point to really ignite that passion again. So here's an interesting story, and one that I'll never forget, and kind of like, bittersweet, but it did happen. So during my master's program, my graduate school, I was actually thinking of pursuing a double major in psychology and in business. And I went the psychology route, of course. And there was a specific class, and there was an introduction, and of course, um, they're asking people what brought you here, what is it that you want to focus on. And I remember that it was when it was actually my turn, I was just kind of like, listen, like I'm here because I want to like literally change the world. I'm passionate about this. I was going to business school. Well, I was thinking of going to a business program, but I didn't do that. But I'm definitely here to make a difference. And the professor literally told me that you should have stayed in business, okay? Because there is no money in psychology. And I was like, what in the world? So talk about like a low blow, especially going, this is my graduate course. Um, but a couple of years ago, as I mentioned, I went to a retreat, and that fire was reignited. And it was really about meeting other people that did want to make a difference. And now it's just about finding those people, building a powerful tribe, and understanding that, yes, we could definitely get together and build a better future where mental wellness is key to betterment and creating a better world. So that's part of like my passion.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. And when you're, helping ignite that passion, there's a lot, if you're working with someone who, let's say, feels kind of stuck or lost in life, what are the steps you're kind of guiding them through to get them unstuck or back on track with feeling like they have a purpose?
Yeah, yeah. And that's a great question. Every individual is different. But one of the approach that I do take goes back to the stages of change. The stages of change. And the stages of change, for those who may not know, is what is required uh, for each individual and what maybe is the challenge within each step of the journey. So of course we have the pre-contemplation stage, and this is the hardest, So we always hear that you cannot change people, and of course it's a little bit, like you tell that to someone, and it's like, well, what's the hope? What's the hope of therapy if you can't really change people? And it's really about identifying the struggles and being that support to someone. In the pre-contemplation stage, it's really difficult to change anyone because it really requires the individual to have an awareness. So in this stage, individuals may not yet recognize that they have an issue. They're not really considering changing anything in behavior. They might have previously changed and given up since. But of course, not all hope is lost. We can take them to the contemplation stage, and this is where the individual may consider like they do have a problem. Okay. And this is where I get some people in therapy, where they may be ambivalent about change. They don't know whether or not it's worth it. Um, but they could recognize reasons to change their behavior, but there's still hesitations, right? The next up, we have preparation stage. Okay, and this is a great stage where I do work with individuals because they have much more of the framework of I will change. And this is when they committed to make the change in their lives and they begin to consider how to do so. And they really start making minor adjustments in their behaviors. So it's a very powerful stage. However, nothing is done until we finally get to the action stage. And this is where individuals really say that I am making the changes. They're actively taking the action to make the changes in their lives. And yeah, it's about reaching out for help. It's about making sure that they're putting themselves in situations where they're receiving feedback. Okay. And this is something I always say in therapy, that look at your world, look at your life through the lens of feedback and not judgment. Because in the action stage, what happens is that we are sometimes very binary in our way of thinking, that is either almost like very black and white. Either I pass or I failed. Either it's good or it's bad. And if you ever tried anything for the first time, well, we're not going to get it right all the time. So it's very important to not look at it from the place of judgment, but really start looking at it from the feedback, the data that you're getting from taking those steps. And that's where I guide them. And of course, finally, we have the maintenance stage, and that's really the framework of the individual feeling that they are living a new life. Um, and yeah, the behaviors of the action stage are actually maintained. They may still face challenges, but at the same time, it's more about making sure we build new habits and build an identity from the steps that we've been taking and the actions that we've been actually implementing.
Yeah, you make me think about like kind of like this what you were talking about, this or that type of thinking and like this binary thinking. So I wanted to talk a bit more about like what you the client it seems like you work on who work with specifically, which is like people struggling with anxiety. And I'm wondering from your perspective, right? Because there's a lot of common misconceptions and people like throwing anxiety out here and there. Like people don't understand like the severity of it can be, and everyone's just like, I have anxiety right in the world. And you hear all these different things. So we're curious from your perspective, how do you like define it from clinical and like a personal perspective? And what are just some common misconceptions about it that people need to know more about and in order for us to be able to help more people and for people to understand like when it's like a disorder and it's like something that people should work on and like try to improve, or if it's just like kind of like a everyday type of life stress that is just you gotta have to get used to it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. And anxiety is really a loosely used term. Okay, so one thing and a common misconception is confusing regular stress with anxiety. Okay, so first of all, anxiety is a form of distress. Okay, anxiety is characterized by excessive worrying, fear or nervousness, and this is often a situation where it is disproportionate to the actual circumstances. However, not all stress is created equal. And what I mean by that is that there are certain stressors that are actually healthy for us. Okay, so it's like, well, how can stress be healthy? So consider this. Um, you're at school, okay, and you have a big class presentation that you have to go ahead and do. And it might be worth like 40% of your class grade. Now, that obviously is going to be producing some form of stress, but it's really about what we do with that stress that can make the difference. So that stress could either push you to either study, to either connect with others, to either connect with the teacher or ask more questions, raise your hand. You do something. Okay. And whenever we consider that there is that stress that really pushes us to be the best version of ourselves, that's actually a healthy form of stress. And this is what you called a eustress. And eustress is our ability to experience stress, but also find solutions. It also pushes us to grow, to learn. Okay. Because it is impossible to sometimes grow if we're in that same level of comfort. So this is one of the most common misconceptions that I see all the time, where it is just more, I have anxiety, and then you ask, it's like, well, I have a big deadline due at work. Okay, that's normal. That's normal. That's stress. And when you sometimes see that is through the preparation that we're able to oftentimes overcome the challenges of stress.
Yeah, you mentioned stress, and it makes me think about mindset and how that interacts with mental health challenges. What are some practical steps people can take to shift their mindset?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest recommendations that I recommend and in kind of like my practice is practicing mindfulness. Okay, mindfulness. And mindfulness, for those who may not know, it is defined as the non-judgmental awareness and acceptance of our thoughts, emotions, and our senses. Okay, keyword there, non-judgmental awareness and acceptance. Okay, because that's we go through a situation. Okay, we go through a situation, and that's sometimes what happens where we just go back to judging. Okay, we go back to not accepting things as they are. And really, when you harness this power of mindfulness, you see that it's all about presence. And our presence is really where our peace comes from. If you really think about it, most of our problems come from a past or future. The past, because there's nothing that we could do to change the past, it's already there. And the future, because how we overthink, overplan, and overanalyze anything. So once we do mindfulness practices and techniques, we tend to learn how to ride the wave of negative thoughts, okay, negative maybe emotions, um, and when we're not maybe feeling our greatest, but not be consumed by the wave, which that really sometimes really checks us out. So that's definitely one of the approaches that I take. Another valuable and sometimes not mentioned enough is journaling. Okay, just journal. Okay, build awareness, do that. Okay, so journaling and what the reason it's so important is because journaling is a pushing away technique. Pushing away what? Pushing away our struggles, challenges, troubles from our head and onto paper. Okay. So journaling really serves you as a record keeper. And record keeping what? Record keeping the things that are contributing negatively and also positively to your life. Okay. So when I sit down with a member and I encourage journaling, one of the biggest things that I really want to figure out with them is like, well, um, if let's say for this past week or so, if you found your days or situation to be horrible, terrible, and catastrophic, which hopefully that's not the case, we definitely want to go ahead and see what are those triggers. We definitely want to go ahead and find out how we could resolve and overcome some of those challenges. And this is no different if the week, right, or the days, or whenever I see them, they're magical. Okay. Because what we later find out is that through the identification of strengths, we could actually extract that and allocate it to different areas of our lives. And this is where growth happens. You could see it now becomes a win-win situation where if we are going through struggles, okay, we are aware of kind of what are we contributing. What is it that we're contributing to these situations? Is there maybe certain decisions or actions that we can maybe take? And if they're great, all right, what seems to be working for you? And once we're able to do that, we're definitely going to be providing the necessary change.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very holistic, and I can definitely resonate with the mindfulness portion of riding the wave. It's yeah, just being in the moment, not letting yourself get carried away into the future tense or the past. It's just being there. And when you have someone, let's say, in that moment of anxiety or even experiencing a panic attack, what is kind of the direction you point them in to I guess first cope with that anxiety in the moment, and then kind of as an ongoing coping kind of
Yeah.
exercise for that.
Yeah. So one of the things that that again I see with clients as well is when they experience forms of panic attacks, or maybe they suffer from panic disorder. And panic disorder is really characterized by recurrent and unexpected attacks, right? Panic-like symptoms, which are very intense episodes of fear or discomfort that really peak within minutes. A lot of times actually anxiety manifests itself physiologically. Okay. And now going to your question, it's really about going back to the body of how we are soothing the body to overcome kind of the challenges that we're experiencing. So a lot of times what I do encourage is forms of breath work. Okay. Breath work is very, very important. Now, there are many, 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 many types of breathing techniques. There's a 4-4-4. There's a 4-4-6. There's many, many. Okay. One of the ones that I do encourage is the 4-4-6. Okay. Very simple. Okay. 4-4-6 means that we're inhaling through our nose for 4 seconds, holding our breath for 4 seconds, and exhaling through the mouth for 6 seconds, and making sure that when we exhale, we're puckering our lips like if we're blowing through a straw. Um, I recommend this maybe like 2 to 3 minutes, okay? But ideally 5 to 10 minutes. And what you're really doing here is instead of course, your sympathetic system kicking in, which is your fight, flight, freeze, we want our parasympathetic system to be activated. It's more like the rest and digest and relaxation. Um, so that is very, very helpful. So breath work, and that's one of many. Another one that I find it to be very effective is progressive relaxation techniques. Okay, so progressive relaxation techniques is it almost works as a body scan. Um, and when we focus on different parts of our body, we're really wanting to just like feel tension, okay, and also feel the relief of letting go of that tension. Okay, so a specific one that I do recommend is called Jacobson Progressive Relaxation Technique. Okay, very, very effective. Okay. Um, Other things that you could incorporate, of course, is any form of physical activity. Okay, so for some, it could be going to the gym, exercising. Others could be running. Um, Yoga, yoga has been again very, very effective to really kind of like release some of the pent up energies. So these are some of the common practices that I definitely recommend whenever we are going through these really intense episodes where yeah, we're really kind of feeling it in our bodies. Okay, so I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, one of the key points that you like mentioned that I really like thought was really interesting was like how anxiety kind of manifests physiologically and is stored physically in different parts of your body, right? And like you can like the stress you feel and the that can contribute to your anxiety. And oftentimes, people may think it's all like mental, right? It's like a mental thing, but there's been more of a mind body, like spirit kind of
Absolutely.
connection and like way are progressing and thinking more about life. So what I'm wondering with in regards like a question for you is how do you think people can continue to like release this weight, this anxiety and stress that's stored physiologically, and how important is that compared to like techniques just like going to therapy and talking it out, which can, I guess, release it physiologically, but kind of like the balance between focusing on the physical self just as much as the mind. Is it as important? Is it how important is, yeah, focusing on that physiological weight, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah. So what I'm understanding from that question is just more like what are the causes of anxiety, and and again, how does it really manifest? Just as a reminder that anxiety is a complex, very much of an emotional and physiological response to perceived threats or maybe stressors. And there's several factors that contribute to anxiety. And yes, there's definitely the physiological factors. There's psychological, where this is where the mental work comes in. Um, there's also genetics. Okay, there's also genetics, so we got to pay attention to that. And there's also like social influences that really impact how we kind of, you know, overcome this, like the struggle that comes from anxiety. So the idea is I would say, as far as to how to approach it, is build the awareness, right? Build the awareness. Start going ahead and checking in with yourself. Sometimes if we feel too drained about a specific situation, well, what's causing it? Okay, I always I always say that there's almost like three forms of anxieties, and again, how to overcome it, which I already spoke about, which is just being present. But a lot of times where I see individuals experience anxiety is when we are focusing on external factors. Okay, when I say focusing on external factors, is that we're investing a lot of our precious resources, okay, which will be time, which will be energy, which will be attention, to things that we really do not have control over, things that we don't really control. And now the question will be, well, what are the things that we control? Um, from my experience, there's only three things that we could control. Okay, three things that we could control. These are our perceptions, these are our decisions, and these are our actions. And once we understand that, and we put the focus on that, we really see it's like, well, how is this influencing and impacting my external factors? So again, a lot of anxiety is about control, but we feel pretty much powerless whenever we don't have or feel like we're in control. And oftentimes it's just a switch and start paying attention to the things that we actually control. Okay. Another form of anxiety, and we hear it all the time, right? We hear it all the time. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown. Okay. So believe it or not, this one is relatively simple, not easy, but it's relatively simple to solve. How so? Because if the problem or the challenge comes from the unknown or not knowing, then the solution will come from the opposite. So now the question becomes, well, knowing. How can we know? Based on perceptions, decisions, and actions that we take, right, or that we experience, what are we willing to find out? Is there a way of knowing right now? Okay. Or are we just avoiding it? Which this is what also causes anxiety. Now, on the other hand, we need to also see that certain things we can know, we can't know. We can't know everything, right? Some things are really far out there. But when you think about it, if it's really part of an unknown, we'll only be able to take care of it once we get there. And that'll be our present. Now, the third form of anxiety, and this is the one that we really struggle with. This is the one, is the fear of the known. It's like fear of the known. The fear of the known explains that we believe or think we know what's going to happen, and everything that happens is horrible, terrible, and a catastrophe. Okay? Now, this was a little bit tricky to overcome, but the simplest way I found to actually overcome this form of anxiety is through is a quote by one of my favorite self-help gurus, Deepak, right? Deepak Chopra. He says that imagination at its best is creativity, and imagination at its worst is anxiety. Okay, so how can we go ahead and take this to our advantage? Well, when we look at even the human brain, okay, um, the responses, right? The response of fear and excitement is regulated in the same region of the brain. And this is our amygdala. Okay. Now we've been very blessed, right, to have a very, large, right, frontal lobe, which is responsible for decision making, analytical skills, problem solving, and so forth. So that statement holds so true because once we go into situations, it's really about how we are perceiving this situation. If we perceive the situation to be a worst case scenario, then that will contribute to a lot of anxiety. However, what if we are able to perceive the said situation a bit differently? If we're able now to perceive it as maybe a best case scenario, well, if I believe a best case scenario could happen from a situation, then this is where maybe different forms of emotions come in, like optimism, positivity, okay, hope. Now, we also see that these are two parts of the spectrum, okay? But in reality, sometimes what happens is that we realize not everything in life turns out as great as we think it's going to be, but it doesn't also turn out as bad as we think it's going to be either. Okay. And if we look at how to really solve for both, because unfortunately there are things in life that we can't escape. Okay. It really now comes towards the preparation when we know whether a worst case scenario can happen, but also there's preparation in making sure a best case scenario does happen as well. And preparation also starts in what we do today. And this is why the present is our greatest gift.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. We're ending towards the end of this episode. So just is there anything you want listeners to know about anxiety or just anything we haven't covered yet that you think would be helpful for them?
Yes. I would just say that practice grace. Okay. Practice grace. Practice compassion with yourself. Okay. No one has everything figured out. Okay. Now, I would say if think about your loved ones, right? Like a person that has your heart, a person that means the world to you. If they're going through a similar struggle as you, well, would you go ahead and mistreat them, judge them harshly, put them down? No, you wouldn't. So why would we do that to ourselves? We have been there from the very start and we will be there to the very end. Make sure that you form the best relationship that you possibly can because that's all we really have at the end of the day. So please, please, if you're listening to this, yes, be kind to yourself. Be patient. And that could be the whole difference in how you have results and different outcomes in your life.
That's awesome. It makes me really think about just like this idea of like we're kind of just reflections, like our outer world is just a reflection of our inner world, right? And like however we like manage our inner world is just how we'll see the world, feel different things. So that's a cool idea. I know Joey was gonna say something about probably where we can find you guys, so find you, yeah, so I'll let him.
Yeah, yeah. So where can our listeners learn more about your work? What your mission is and just the day to day, where can they follow you?
Absolutely. So you could follow me on Instagram or TikTok for just different forms of insights, motivations, just behind the scenes of how I definitely give back to the world. And you could follow me by my name, so Yaosmel, so YAO Yaosmelo, and then O, so it's Yaosmelo. Okay. And you could also find me in my school community. It's called Mindset Warrior Circle. And there's where we dive a little bit deeper. We connect with each other, build a powerful community. Remember, growth doesn't happen alone, and that's why it's so important to stay connecting, to kind of like, like just a great support. And most importantly, remember, kind of like keep showing up for yourself. Okay, just keep
Hmm.
showing up for yourself. And of course, there's people out there that are willing to help as long as you reach out your hand. And that's why I'm here, and that's why we're doing this.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for listening. Please go check out Yao and his work on TikTok, Instagram. We'll send all the links below.